What's up, guys? This is Hyce, and today we have another Hyce Reacts. It's been a minute since we've done one of these, but I've had at least 25, if not 30 of you send me this clip that's kind of trending on social medias, at least for train people. Trending for trains is a very small circuit of things, but it features two locomotives that are doing a tug-o-war. They call it a tug-o-war, but they're pushing... The push-a-war? Whatever. So many of you have sent me this that it's honestly easier to talk about the film in this format than it is in any other format. I did a little research and it turns out that this is a clip from a 1930 film called Danger Lights, which is free on YouTube. It's apparently been in public domain since the early 1950s based on older laws and such. It is a train movie. It was filmed on the Milwaukee Road. At least it's a train, and it's a typical early film love interest, love drama shenanigans, but there's a lot of trains involved and there's some neat train things throughout the whole film. But the specific scene is just part of some exhibition. I didn't get enough of a clue of what was going on around it in the plot. As you watch the scenes before and after, you're like, what was the point of that other than just doing it? Okay, cool. But we have genuine footage with sound and everything, because this was a talkie, not a silent film. It was in that era of a 282 and a 462 battling for it. There's some implications for this, which is why people are sending me this. Let's take a look at the clip and then we'll talk about it after the fact. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, your attention please to the next feature on the program. That mighty spectacle presented by our own boys and on our own engine. A tug-of-war between two colossal moguls of the rod.
And now there's a band playing. There you go. So, kind of out of context, just this clip in the middle of this film. It's not like the climactic end. They talk about the film having a fight between two people in the train yard and whatever. This is like in the first act. It was early in cinema, what can we say? Now, onto the mechanical things. What are the ramifications of doing this? It's kind of surprising that we have footage of this sort of thing actually happening, because obviously, no duh, it's not great for the locomotive, but kind of in a more interesting way than you'd think. When you get into a prolonged slip like that, the challenge is, okay, you're hurting the running gear, duh. Particularly, in this case, heating up the tires, because you're getting all the extra friction from running them so quick against something that's totally stationary. Typically, when you're running that fast with a locomotive, and you've got cars behind you, whatever, and you're not slipping, even if you're doing the same RPM in the engine itself, the interface between rail and track is still what we call rolling friction, where it's a static friction connection between each part of the driver and the rail as it comes, right? So there's nothing that's sliding, there's no slipping, you're not generating and putting that extra heat right into the wheels. So definitely not great. You do this sort of thing for a prolonged enough amount of time, you could heat up the tires, you could slip a tire, not super great. As far as the rest of the engine's concerned, it's running at the speeds it was designed to run, basically. Yes, it looks like a pretty fast, violent slip, but it's not stupid uber fast. The rest of the engine, so long as there's no harsh stopping or starting, is actually just understanding, hey, I'm running really fast and I'm not really under load. If you're pulling something and trying to go that fast, you're actually stressing everything in the engine harder than you would be in this case, because you're not causing a load, you're just spinning the drivers real fast, which could have a secondary effect. Yes, you're not loading things and stressing things as hard in one way, but it could mean that you're throwing the slop of the rods around and all your bearings around a lot harder, so you could be egg-shaping things faster. Regardless, not something that you would like to do. Wheel slip is not great on a steam locomotive, ever, and this is a pretty egregious case. You'll note one interesting detail: there is never any sand deployed. And those of you who have particularly maintained locomotives, and hopefully those of you who have run locomotives, understand why. For those of you who don't, the big reason that there's no sand going on here is that they're trying to keep those slips pronounced, they're trying to keep that sort of thing happening. The second you get extra grip and you have a violent wheel slip like that, you're gonna break everything. Because sand is going to add a lot to your frictional coefficient. You'll have that driver spin it at 60, and it'll want to lock if it gets the right amount of sand. Friend of mine, we've talked about on the channel before, he's had to repair a driver center because an engineer caught a pretty bad slip with sand rather than shutting off, sanding, and then coming back out on it. The driver cracked the wheel center itself, and they had to dig in and do lock and stitch in the whole 9 yards. So don't do that. Don't catch slips with sand, at least in terms of a steam locomotive where you don't have a solid wheel typically and stuff. Diesels are different, blah, blah, blah. Another thing that's fun to note is one of those Hollywood myths. Maybe it's something that you can't see because exposure or early cameras, but I would have thought the brightness would have shown up quite well. You don't see the violent sparks being thrown. That's always something that is kind of a cliche of other films and other things, and I get asked about all the time, and, oh, wheel slip, why aren't there sparks? You know, where's the sparks? Sometimes if you get a particularly violent wheel slip in dry conditions, yes, that can happen. You see that, and there's videos of diesel locomotives doing that. It's a little bit more challenging for a steam locomotive to do that based on the size of the driver, the interface speeds, and the fact that you really can't get the same kind of RPMs out of it. And that's really where that comes from. Yes, I'm certain it would be possible, especially if the track had burrs in it and all that stuff. Is it every single time you have a slip you're going to throw sparks? No, and we don't see that here. Though I would hazard a guess they probably did grease the rails in order to get this sort of thing to happen. Adhesion is adhesion. A locomotive is not supposed to or designed to slip that easily on level track like that, although I guess if you had somebody pushing against you, might make it a little easier. Now, it does look like, of course, the winner of the tug-of-war was the 282. That should come as no surprise. We've talked about driver size and tractive effort and horsepower and all this stuff a million times on the channel. Smaller drivers. That means that the torque of the engine has a better ratio on the wheel than the other engine does, right, with bigger drivers. So that engine is able to put the power down more easily. Anything else was kind of for show, for the spectacle, right? If you're putting on a show of a tug-of-war of engines, they're purposefully making it a show with the whistles and the things and the wheel spin and all that junk. You could have a tug-of-war between engines and probably not have near as much wheel slip, but this was for a spectacle. So, of course, the 282 won at the end of the day when things happened and it pushed. There you go. The last fun detail is the bell. You might have seen me reacting in the midst of the video going, woo, woo, woo. Yeah, that's why a lot of bells, particularly on the Rio Grande steam, had an extra piece of metal that's twisted on top of the bell. It's called an anti-rollover bar, so you can't do that. Because if you keep doing that, hi, you know who you are, viewer of the channel, friend of mine. I know a man who has unseated the bell from its taper, the top of a bell, going into the actual yoke and harp that it sits in. The top is a tapered fit, so you press it in, tapered fit, and you run it down with a bolt nut situation that holds it real tight. And theoretically, the bolt is jamming that bell against its taper. You get it to vibrate enough, which a bell vibrates, that's how it makes sound. You loosen that nut so it can work a little bit. You keep flinging it around. You slowly, eventually can unseat that taper, and then the bell falls off and rolls down the mountain, and you have to go get it. So that's a good reason to have the anti-rollover bars, but definitely a funny thing to watch. Just, oh yeah, no, he's just got it doing the spin ding. Okay. Anyways, guys, I thought this was a fun video. I mean, seeing the clip is kind of like, it's kind of amazing that we have video footage of this sort of thing, and it's real historic footage from the Milwaukee Road with real locomotives, and it actually happened. I'm gonna have to watch the rest of the film and see if there's any other fun train things, but I really wanted to talk about it because so many of you guys had reached out. Anyways, hope you learned something, hope you thought it was fun, hope you thought the clip was neat. The video will be down in the description if you want to watch the original. And as always, thanks so much for watching. We'll catch y'all next time.